In 40K, there are some things that just go hand in hand. The Space Marine and Bolter, the Commissar and Execution, and the Flamer and Heretics being burnt to a crisp. If there's any 40K weapon based on real weapons that truly shows the grim dark of war, it would be the Flamer. Today, we're going to talk about the brief lore into the types of flamers used by humans, see how the one in Darktide plays, and see if this specific example of a flamer can be used in real life. Flamers can either use canisters that, while have low capacity, can be switched out with other canisters, like the Artima Mark III Purgation Flamer, or it can be hooked up to a backpack like the Hades Pattern Mark III Assault Flamer. Now, in the lore, they don't really give out specifics for the range or capacity of the flamers. It tends to be what the story needs it to be. That being said, we know they generally keep it under a minute and well within 50 meters. Now, another component of these flamers is the fuel. Most just use promethium that is ignited by a pilot light at the end of the hose. There are others that have two liquids in different canisters that are mixed together while being shot through the nozzle that makes them flammable. There are some that have radioactive material infused with the flamers to negate regenerative abilities, though those are mainly used by the Death Watch. Then there are some that straight up shoot poison gas. However, let's acknowledge the carnifex in the room. Why are we using flamethrowers in an age where laser weapons, explosive shells, and WMDs are commonplace? Well, like I said earlier, there's few things quite as grim as burning someone alive. Second, it's always been useful. It's just in our timeline, we care about our soldiers' life expectancy. In the Imperial Guard, we expect you to die in the Emperor's service. Third, there is a litany of creatures that you quite literally want to kill with fire. Just ask the guys on Katachan. There, a gun doesn't put you on top of the food chain, it just gives you a fighting chance to not be on the bottom. Specifically, flamers can negate cover as the flames will just envelop the cover. Someone hiding in a tunnel, just shoot flames into it and either deprive the people inside of oxygen until they suffocate or let the excess heat roast them alive like an impromptu oven. It doesn't matter much if a creature can regenerate health if your fire is causing the fatty deposits on their body to burst and their muscles to contract from being cooked well done. And that's assuming they haven't died from smoke inhalation. Swarms of bugs or a group of heretics charging down a choke point, it doesn't matter. A burst of a flamer will do more than a squad of guardsmen with las guns. Have enemies hiding in a bush or in brush or woodlands? Just burn it down like a summer in California. Even light vehicles will have issues as their tires and the inner components in the engine compartment melt. Hell, why use a smoke grenade when you can use a literal wall of fire for cover? Anyone who's used flame weapons in games can tell you that more often than not, they're overpowered. Speaking of games, let's look at the Flamer in Darktide. This is Artemia Mark III Purgation Flamer. It's a full-size flamer with an interchangeable canister for reloading. The flamer can fire continuously for 6 seconds with a range of 20 meters. The flamer can also do a quick burst of flame like the Seraphim hand flamers, which those use a negligible amount of promethium, while here we only use a fraction of our canister. There's only one flamer available, so it begs the question, is it any good? Oh yeah. This weapon burns through fodder enemies and has a high enough DPS where all it takes is a full second burst to potentially kill a couple dozen enemies. With the right upgrades, you can increase your firing time, double down on damage, or have specials explode on death, which is neato. Also, the burst fire option can stagger enemies and interrupt special actions like bombers and trappers. All in all, it plays very well in how you would expect a flamer to be utilized on a team, by causing the enemy to lose momentum and look like they're running around with their heads on fire. Because they are. The downsides are twofold: range and crushers. The former can be remedied by moving or throwing your emulation grenades, and you better have emulation grenades if you're using a flamer, while the latter can only be solved with a proper melee weapon or your team. Now, I would ask if we can have something like this in real life, but the answer is an obvious yes. So rather, let's look and see if there's a flamethrower that functions exactly like the one in Darktide, or at the very least, if the concept is possible. Our criteria being the following: similar in size to a rifle, canister loaded instead of the backpack, has a range close to 20 meters, can sustain firing for 6 seconds. Lastly, have the flame stick to its target, as otherwise we just have an oversized torch. Let's take a look at some flamethrowers. In terms of size and not requiring a backpack, we are spoiled for flamethrower options. We have the Pulse Fire, the XM42, and the Vulcan flamethrowers. They all carry between a third to half a gallon of fuel and can shoot a stream from 25 to 58 seconds continuously. And that's where the similarities end. The ranges are lacking at about 25 feet or just under 8 meters, which is under half the range we need. Secondly, at best, they can shoot a gasoline-diesel mix, but that's not exactly the type of accelerant we need to keep the flames on target. Throwflame has the XL18 flamethrower, which has an impressive 33-meter range or over 110 feet, while keeping a sustained stream to 6 seconds, which is perfect and can shoot napalm to boot. But at 45 pounds and needing a backpack to operate it, we don't really have much of a match here. The issue we run into is that in order to shoot at longer ranges, we need higher pressures. And with that means a higher consumption of fuel. The XL18 needs over 3 gallons of fuel to reach that distance and to go for 6 seconds straight. If we were to put that pressure in, say, the Pulse Fire with its 1-liter tank, we'd be out of fuel in 1 second. So, is there a middle ground? Yes, but only in concept. This is the X15 flamethrower. It only has a range of 50 feet or 15 meters, which is at least close. It has a 3.3 gallon tank, but it has a stream time of 60 seconds. That means if we were to downsize this tank by a tenth, then it would have the same capacity of the Pulse Fire, while having a pressure to reach a decent range and still having a stream time of 6 seconds. So yes, in concept, we have a flamer like in Darktide, but there are 2 glaring oversights. First, the canister is not interchangeable, meaning reloading consists of pouring fuel into the canister, which isn't great in a fight. Second, what gives the X15 and the XL18 the pressure to reach these ranges is using CO2 canisters, meaning when those run out, they'll need to be changed, something that isn't ever mentioned or required for 40K flamers. So that's where we're at. Sure, we have some kick-ass flamers in real life that anyone in the US can own, except those in Maryland, but we quite aren't there yet to 40K standards, at least in regards to this specific flamer. The Hades pattern flamer, though, get an X15, and that'll be close enough in my opinion. Still, the foundations are there just waiting for the next mad scientist to push flamethrower technology to the level where we can burn heretics to our heart's content. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you next time out in the warp.